The roar of jet engines cuts through the dawn sky as a seasoned pilot faces the most impossible decision of his career. 20 years of service, countless missions flown in the name of freedom, and now everything he's sworn to protect hangs in the balance. In the cockpit of his F-16, with enemy radar closing in and his wingman's life on the line, he must choose between following direct orders and saving the life of a brother in arms. The weight of duty presses against his chest like the G-forces of a steep climb, but some choices transcend protocol. Some moments define not just a mission, but the very soul of what it means to serve. This is a story where honor meets heartbreak, where the sky becomes both sanctuary and battlefield, and where one man's courage will echo through the halls of military history forever. Welcome, fellow patriots and aviation enthusiasts. I'm thrilled to have you join me for this incredible journey through courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds forged in service to our nation. Please take a moment to share where you're watching from, whether you're a veteran, active military, aviation enthusiast, or simply someone who appreciates stories of heroism and honor. What draws you most to military aviation stories? Is it the technical precision of aerial combat, the brotherhood among pilots, or perhaps the way these tales capture the true spirit of patriotism and sacrifice? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's soar together into this unforgettable tale of duty, honor, and the price of doing what's right. The morning sun cast long shadows across Naval Base Coronado as Emma Rodriguez tightened the final bolt on the MH-60 Seahawk's main rotor assembly. At 28, she had earned respect as the base's senior aircraft mechanic, her hands as steady as any veteran twice her age. Emma stepped back to inspect her work, dark hair pulled in its customary ponytail, dog tags catching the light. They bore her father's name, Captain Miguel Rodriguez, United States Navy. The official story was simple and heartbreaking, a training accident 12 years ago that claimed a promising pilot's life. Emma had been 16, old enough to understand loss, but too young to question the gaps that never made sense. Rodriguez, Sergeant Major Martinez's voice boomed across the hangar. At 45, Martinez was a Coronado fixture who had served with her father. "That bird ready for morning flight test?" "Always is when I'm done with her, Sergeant Major," Emma replied with quiet confidence. She possessed her father's warm brown eyes, but held determination forged by years proving herself in a world that didn't always welcome civilians. "New CO arrives today," Martinez mentioned, tension in his voice. "Commander Stone, SEAL team leader, here to establish a new special operations unit." Emma's hands paused as she secured her toolkit. Something in Martinez's tone suggested this arrival was different. "Any word on operations?" she asked. As senior civilian mechanic, she would work closely with any unit requiring air support. "Classified," Martinez replied, but his expression suggested he knew more. "Keep those birds perfect, Rodriguez. We're going to need them." A black SUV with government plates pulled up. Emma watched a tall figure emerge, his bearing unmistakably military. Commander Marcus Stone stood 6'2", broad shoulders marking him as a man accustomed to command. At 35, his light brown hair was regulation cut, blue eyes sweeping the hangar with practiced assessment. Stone's gaze fell upon the maintenance roster. His expression changed when he saw E. Rodriguez, senior aircraft mechanic. His clipboard trembled as memories flooded back. Afghanistan, impossible choices, and Captain Miguel Rodriguez, the Navy pilot who chose courage over compliance. Stone approached, mind racing between past and present. He had come to build something new, not confront ghosts. "Commander Stone," Martinez stepped forward. "This is Emma Rodriguez, our senior aircraft mechanic. Best on the West Coast." Stone extended his hand. Emma shook it firmly, noting calluses that spoke of years handling weapons. When their eyes met, she saw unexpected recognition, followed by what looked like pain. "Ms. Rodriguez," Stone said, voice carefully controlled, "I understand you maintain our rotary wing assets." "Correct, sir," Emma replied professionally. "Every helicopter on base, plus I hold a private pilot's license. My father taught me before his accident." The words hit Stone like a physical blow. Miguel Rodriguez had been a teacher, a man who believed flying was sacred trust. Stone remembered the captain's steady hands, even as enemy fire erupted around them. "Your father was a pilot?" Stone asked, though he knew. "Captain Miguel Rodriguez," Emma said with quiet pride, "died in a training accident 12 years ago. I was 16. Training accident. The official story, the necessary lie protecting classified operations and grieving families. Stone had read the sanitized report countless times, each word a reminder of unpayable debt. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, meaning every word. Emma nodded with practiced grace, but something in Stone's voice, a depth beyond polite sympathy, made her study him closely. There was knowledge in his eyes, weight suggesting her father's death meant more than it should to a stranger. As Stone walked away, Emma watched with growing curiosity. Martinez seemed troubled, weathered features creased with concern. "Sergeant Major," Emma said quietly, "do you know Commander Stone?" Martinez was silent, eyes following Stone across the tarmac. When he spoke, his voice carried weight of old secrets. "I know his reputation. Good man, good leader, the kind who brings his people home." Emma heard what he didn't say, saw tension suggesting more to the story. As she returned to work, questions churned in her mind. Stone's arrival felt like opening a door she hadn't known existed, one that might lead to truths about her father's death hidden for 12 years. The morning sun climbed higher, casting new shadows, and Emma Rodriguez continued her work, unaware her carefully ordered world was about to change forever. 3 days had passed since Commander Stone's arrival, and Emma found herself unconsciously watching for him during morning routines. She told herself it was professional curiosity, but something deeper nagged at her. Their brief meeting had left important words unspoken. The opportunity came during weekly aircraft inspection. Emma was elbow-deep in a Seahawk's engine compartment when familiar footsteps approached. Stone's measured pace was already recognizable. "Ms. Rodriguez," Stone's voice carried careful control. "Mind if I observe the inspection?" Emma emerged, wiping her hands. "Of course, sir. Good to have command familiar with procedures." Stone positioned himself to watch without interfering. His blue eyes tracked her movements with intensity beyond casual interest. Emma felt his attention as she explained each step, hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Your father taught you well," Stone said quietly, almost to himself. Emma's hands stilled. "Excuse me, sir?" Stone caught himself. "I meant your attention to detail. Exceptional for someone so young. 8 years experience, sir. Started as apprentice out of high school." Emma's voice carried defensive edge. She'd heard that comment before from officers assuming youth meant inexperience. "That's not what I meant," Stone said softer. "I see passion in your work. You handle these machines like living things." Emma studied his face, searching for the source of his strange familiarity. "My father said helicopters were temperamental creatures demanding respect. Listen carefully, they'll tell you what they need." Stone's jaw tightened. Miguel Rodriguez had said those exact words during maintenance briefings in Afghanistan, explaining why he personally checked every system before dangerous missions. "Wise advice," Stone managed. "Did he teach you to fly?" "Started at 14, Emma replied, voice warming. "Said every mechanic should understand pilot's experience. Got my license at 18, still practice when schedules allow." The irony struck Stone hard. Miguel had been teaching his daughter while training Stone's team for the mission that would claim his life. The captain had spoken of Emma during Afghan nights, pride evident describing her aviation aptitude. "Commander," Emma said carefully, "forgive me if inappropriate, but you seem to know more about my father than a stranger should. Did you serve with him?" Stone felt the moment crystallizing, 12 years of secrets pressing against his chest. Martinez appeared at the hangar entrance, weathered face creasing with concern. "Everything all right?" Martinez asked, eyes fixed on Stone. "Ms. Rodriguez was telling me about her father's flying lessons," Stone replied neutrally. Martinez's expression shifted, understanding passing between the men. Emma caught the exchange, frustration building. "Sergeant Major, you knew my father personally, didn't you?" Emma pressed. "And there's something you're not telling me." The men exchanged another look, military protocol warring with human compassion. Martinez spoke first, voice gentle but firm. "Emma, your father was a good man and fine pilot. That's what matters." "But that's not all, is it?" Emma's voice rose. "I've spent 12 years accepting the official story, but I'm not 16 anymore. I can handle truth." Stone felt Miguel's sacrifice weighing down. The captain had died saving Stone's team, disobeying orders to extract them from impossible situations. The mission remained classified, heroism unrecognized except by survivors. "Some truths are complicated, Ms. Rodriguez," Stone said carefully. Sometimes official stories protect more than operational security. Emma stared, seeing confirmation in his reluctance. He didn't die in a training accident, did he? Silence stretched heavy with implications. Martinez cleared his throat. Rodriguez, that hydraulic system on Bird 3 needs attention. Priority maintenance. Emma recognized the dismissal, but heard the underlying message. Conversation over. She nodded stiffly, gathering tools with sharp movements. Understood, Sergeant Major. As she walked toward the other aircraft, Stone watched, seeing Miguel's determined stride in her purposeful movements. Martinez waited until she was out of earshot. She's going to keep pushing, Marcus. Got her father's stubborn streak. Stone nodded, the first name confirming their shared history. I know she deserves truth, but not yet. Not until I understand why I'm really here. What do you mean? Stone's expression darkened. My orders were specific. Establish new unit, but mission parameters are vague. Someone wanted me at Coronado, Sergeant Major. Someone who knows about Afghanistan. Martinez felt understanding chill. After 12 years, the past was catching up with them all, and Emma Rodriguez stood directly in its path. Emma's wrench slipped, skinning her knuckles against the metal housing. She cursed under her breath, more from frustration than pain. For 2 days she had been unable to concentrate properly, her mind replaying the conversation with Stone and Martinez. Their careful words and meaningful glances suggested a conspiracy of silence that had lasted 12 years. She was performing routine pre-ceremony maintenance on the base's helicopter fleet when she noticed the first anomaly. The torque specifications on several critical bolts were slightly off, not enough to cause immediate failure, but sufficient to create catastrophic problems under stress. Emma frowned, checking her records. These aircraft had been serviced just last week by the night shift crew. Interesting reading? Emma spun around to find Lieutenant Colonel Robert Hayes standing behind her, his grey hair impeccably styled despite the early hour. At 48, Hayes commanded respect through rank rather than affection, his cold eyes and calculating manner making most personnel uncomfortable. Just maintenance logs, sir, Emma replied, instinctively closing the folder. Something about Hayes had always unsettled her, though she couldn't pinpoint why. Tomorrow's ceremony is quite important, Hayes continued, stepping closer. Dignitaries, media coverage, families, we need everything perfect. Always is, sir, Emma said, echoing her usual response. But Hayes's emphasis on the ceremony felt pointed, almost threatening. I'm sure it is. Your father would be proud of your dedication. Hayes's smile didn't reach his eyes. Tragic loss. That training accident. Such a waste of talent. Emma's blood chilled. Hayes had never mentioned her father before, and his tone suggested knowledge beyond official records. Did you know him, sir? Only by reputation, Hayes replied smoothly. Pilots talk, you know. Stories get passed down. He paused, studying her face. Some stories are better left buried, don't you think? The warning was subtle but unmistakable. Emma nodded stiffly, watching Hayes walk away with growing unease. His interest in tomorrow's ceremony, combined with the maintenance irregularities, painted a disturbing picture. Meanwhile, in the base archives, Stone sat surrounded by classified files, his security clearance granting access to records most would never see. The official report on Miguel Rodriguez's death was sanitized, clinical, revealing nothing of the heroism that had cost the captain his life. But Stone knew where to look for the real story. Deep in the operational files, he found references to Operation Nightfall, the mission that had gone catastrophically wrong in Afghanistan. The after-action reports painted a picture of command failure, impossible odds, and one man's decision to save lives, regardless of orders. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes had been the mission commander. Stone's jaw clenched as he read Hayes's report, noting the careful language that shifted blame while protecting careers. Miguel Rodriguez was portrayed as a rogue pilot who disobeyed direct orders. His death an unfortunate consequence of poor judgment rather than heroic sacrifice. The truth was different. Stone remembered every detail of that night, the ambush, the casualties, the impossible extraction point. Hayes had ordered them to hold position and wait for reinforcement that would never come. Miguel had seen the tactical situation clearly. Wait, and Stone's entire team would die. So the captain had come anyway, flying into a kill zone to save men he barely knew because it was the right thing to do. A soft knock interrupted Stone's thoughts. Martinez entered, his expression grim. "We need to talk," the sergeant major said quietly. "About Hayes, about tomorrow." Stone closed the files, his mind racing. What about tomorrow? Emma found something. Maintenance irregularities on the ceremony aircraft. Small things, but she's good at her job. She knows when something's wrong. Sabotage? Maybe. Or maybe someone wants those helicopters to fail at a very specific moment. Martinez sat heavily. "Marcus, Hayes has been asking questions about you, about why you're really here." Stone felt pieces clicking into place. His assignment to Coronado had come through unusual channels, bypassing normal command structure. Someone had wanted him here, but perhaps not for the reasons he'd assumed. "He knows I was there that night," Stone said quietly. "In Afghanistan, he knows I survived because of Miguel. And now Miguel's daughter is asking questions about her father's death," Martinez added. "Questions that could expose what really happened." The implications were staggering. If Hayes was involved in tomorrow's ceremony security, if he had access to the aircraft Emma maintained, if he felt threatened by the possibility of truth emerging after 12 years. "We need to find Emma," Stone said, standing abruptly. "Now." But Emma was already making discoveries of her own. Hidden in the maintenance bay, she had found components that didn't belong, small devices attached to critical systems, designed to look like standard equipment to casual observation. Her mechanical expertise told her exactly what they were: remote-controlled failure mechanisms. Someone was planning to sabotage tomorrow's ceremony, and they were using her aircraft to do it. Emma's hands shook as she photographed the devices with her phone. She needed to report this immediately, but to whom? Hayes was ceremony security commander. If he was involved, footsteps echoed in the hangar. Emma quickly pocketed her phone and grabbed her tools, trying to appear busy as two figures approached. Her heart sank when she recognized Hayes's voice, accompanied by someone she didn't know. "Everything in place for tomorrow," Hayes was saying. "The devices are undetectable unless someone knows exactly what to look for." "And the mechanic?" the unknown voice asked. "Rodriguez? She's competent but naive. Believes the official story about her father. As long as she stays focused on routine maintenance, there won't be problems." Emma's blood turned to ice. They were talking about her father, about tomorrow's ceremony, and they had no idea she was listening from behind the aircraft. "What if she discovers something?" The voice pressed. Hayes's laugh was cold. "Then we'll have another tragic accident, just like her father." Emma bit her lip to keep from gasping. The implication was clear. Her father's death hadn't been an accident. It had been murder. And now they were planning something for tomorrow that would require her silence, or her death. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs as Hayes and his companion moved deeper into the hangar, their voices fading into the mechanical hum of ventilation systems. She remained frozen behind the aircraft for several minutes after their footsteps disappeared, her mind reeling from what she had overheard. Her father had been murdered. The training accident was a lie, just as she had always suspected. And now, 12 years later, someone was planning to use tomorrow's ceremony for another attack, using her helicopters as weapons. Emma forced herself to move, gathering her tools with trembling hands. She needed help, but Hayes controlled base security. Going through official channels could be signing her death warrant. The only people who had shown knowledge of her father's true story were Stone and Martinez. She found them in Stone's temporary office, heads bent over classified files. Both men looked up as she entered, and Stone immediately noticed her pale complexion and shaking hands. "Emma, what's wrong?" Martinez asked, rising from his chair. "I know about my father," she said quietly, closing the door behind her. "And I know about tomorrow." Stone and Martinez exchanged a look of alarm. Stone gestured to a chair, but Emma remained standing, her nervous energy too intense for sitting. "Tell us what you know," Stone said carefully. Emma pulled out her phone, showing them the photographs of the sabotage devices. Someone's rigged the ceremony aircraft, remote-controlled failure mechanisms designed to look like equipment malfunctions. Stone studied the images, his expression darkening. "Professional work, military grade. There's more," Emma continued, her voice gaining strength. "I overheard Hayes talking to someone. They're planning something for tomorrow, and they mentioned my father. Said if I discovered anything, there would be another tragic accident." The silence that followed was deafening. Martinez rubbed his weathered face, while Stone stared at the photographs with growing fury. "Emma," Stone said finally, "sit down. It's time you knew the truth about your father." She sank into the offered chair, her legs suddenly weak. Stone moved to the window, staring out at the tarmac where Miguel Rodriguez had once walked. 12 years ago, I was a young SEAL team leader in Afghanistan, Stone began, his voice heavy with memory. My team was conducting reconnaissance in hostile territory when we were ambushed. Pinned down, taking casualties, with no viable extraction point. Emma listened in silence, her hands clenched in her lap. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes was our mission commander. When we called for extraction, he ordered us to hold position and wait for reinforcement. But the tactical situation was impossible. We would have been overrun within hours. Stone turned to face her, his blue eyes reflecting old pain. Your father was the pilot assigned to our operation. He saw what Hayes couldn't or wouldn't. That waiting meant death for my entire team. So he came anyway, Emma whispered, understanding flooding through her. Against direct orders. He flew into a kill zone, took heavy fire, but got us out. All of us except... Stone's voice broke slightly. Except him. His aircraft was hit during extraction. He died saving 8 men he barely knew. Tears streamed down Emma's face, but they were tears of pride mixed with grief. Why was it covered up? Martinez spoke for the first time. Because Hayes needed to protect his career. A mission commander who left men to die while a subordinate disobeyed orders to save them. That's not the kind of story the military wants public. So they called it a training accident, Stone continued, and your father's heroism was buried in classified files. Hayes got his promotion, and the truth died with the men who knew it. Except you lived, Emma said, looking at Stone with new understanding. We all lived. My entire team owes their lives to Captain Miguel Rodriguez. I've carried that debt for 12 years, never knowing how to repay it. Emma wiped her eyes, her grief transforming into determination. Hayes is here. He's planning something for tomorrow's ceremony, and he's willing to kill me to keep the truth buried. Stone's expression hardened into something dangerous. Not while I'm breathing. What's the ceremony tomorrow? Emma asked. Why is it so important? Martinez consulted his notes. Memorial dedication for fallen pilots, families, media, congressional delegation, high-profile target for anyone wanting to make a statement. Or settle old scores, Stone added grimly. Hayes knows I'm here. He knows I could expose what happened in Afghanistan. If he eliminates me and you during a terrorist attack, the truth dies with us, Emma finished, and he walks away clean. Stone moved to his desk, pulling out secure communication equipment. Not this time. We're going to stop him, and we're going to honor your father's memory the right way. Emma stood, her fear replaced by resolve that would have made Miguel Rodriguez proud. Tell me what you need me to do. First we document everything, then we make sure those aircraft are safe for tomorrow, and finally, Stone's voice carried deadly promise, we give Hayes the justice he's avoided for 12 years. Outside, storm clouds gathered over Coronado, as if the sky itself sensed the approaching confrontation between truth and deception, honor and corruption. Dawn broke gray and ominous over Naval Base Coronado, matching the tension that had settled over the small group gathered in Stone's office. Emma had worked through the night, carefully documenting every sabotage device, while Stone and Martinez coordinated with trusted contacts off-base. The devices are sophisticated, Emma reported, her voice hoarse from exhaustion but steady with purpose. Remote detonation, designed to cause catastrophic failure during flight. Whoever installed these knew exactly what they were doing. Stone studied the technical diagrams Emma had sketched. Military demolitions expert. Someone with access to restricted ordnance. Hayes has both, Martinez added grimly, plus operational command of today's security. The memorial ceremony was scheduled to begin in 6 hours. Families of fallen pilots would gather to witness the dedication of a new monument, while helicopters performed a ceremonial flyover. It should have been a day of honor and remembrance. Instead, it had become a trap. I've contacted Agent Sarah Chen at NCIS, Stone said, checking his secure phone. She's en route with a small team, but they won't arrive until after the ceremony begins. We can't wait, Emma said firmly. Those families, the pilots, they're all in danger. Stone nodded, his respect for her growing. Miguel Rodriguez's daughter had inherited more than his mechanical aptitude. She possessed his courage and moral clarity. Here's what we're going to do, Stone began, spreading base schematics across his desk. Emma, you'll disable the sabotage devices during final pre-flight checks. Can you do it without triggering them? Yes, but I'll need cover. Hayes will have people watching. Martinez will create a distraction, routine security inspection that requires Hayes's attention elsewhere. Martinez grinned grimly. I can be very thorough when needed. What about you? Emma asked Stone. I'm going to have a conversation with our old friend Hayes. Time to settle some accounts. Emma felt a chill of concern. Commander, if he's desperate enough to plan mass murder, he won't expect a direct confrontation. Men like Hayes prefer shadows and deception. When forced into the light, they usually fold. But even as Stone spoke with confidence, he knew Hayes was more dangerous than Emma realized. The lieutenant colonel had spent 12 years covering his tracks, eliminating loose ends. He wouldn't surrender quietly. 2 hours before the ceremony, Emma made her way to the flight line, toolkit in hand and heart pounding. The morning air carried the salt tang of the Pacific, but underneath lurked the metallic scent of approaching violence. She found the first aircraft exactly as she had left it, the sabotage device hidden among legitimate components. Her hands moved with practiced precision, disconnecting the remote trigger while leaving the device itself intact. Hayes would see what he expected to see during his final inspection. Working early today, Rodriguez? Emma's blood froze. Hayes stood behind her, his grey eyes cold and calculating. She hadn't heard him approach, and his sudden appearance felt like a predator cornering prey. Final check, sir, Emma replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. Want everything perfect for the families. Of course you do. Your dedication is admirable. Hayes moved closer, his presence oppressive in the confined space beneath the aircraft. Tell me, have you noticed anything unusual lately? Any irregularities in your maintenance logs? Emma's mind raced. He was testing her, trying to determine how much she knew. Nothing unusual, sir. Everything's running smoothly. Hayes smiled, but it never reached his eyes. Good. It would be unfortunate if complications arose today, especially for someone with your family history. The threat was unmistakable. Emma nodded, not trusting her voice, and Hayes walked away with the satisfied air of a man confident in his control. But he had made a crucial mistake. By threatening her directly, Hayes had confirmed everything Stone suspected. The game was no longer about covering up the past. It was about survival. Emma finished her work on the remaining aircraft, her movements quick and efficient despite her racing heart. Each disabled device was a life saved, a family spared the grief she had carried for 12 years. As she completed the final helicopter, her phone buzzed with a text from Stone. Hayes took the bait. Martinez has him occupied. Finish and get clear. Emma packed her tools and headed for the hangar, but stopped when she saw Hayes returning earlier than expected. His face was dark with suspicion, and he was speaking rapidly into a radio. Something had gone wrong. Emma ducked behind a fuel truck as Hayes approached the flight line with 2 armed security personnel. Her heart sank as she realized the truth. Hayes knew about their plan. Somehow he had discovered their deception, and now she was trapped, with nowhere to run and the ceremony beginning in less than 2 hours. Emma crouched behind the fuel truck, her mind racing as Hayes and his men systematically checked each aircraft. Through the gap beneath the vehicle, she could see their boots moving methodically from helicopter to helicopter. When they discovered the disabled devices, her deception would be exposed. Her phone vibrated with an incoming text from Stone. Hayes escaped Martinez, where are you? Emma typed quickly. Flight line, trapped. He's checking the aircraft. The response came immediately. Stay hidden, help coming. But Emma knew help might arrive too late. Hayes was already at the second helicopter, his voice carrying across the tarmac as he directed his men. In minutes, they would find the tampered devices. She had to move. Emma slipped from behind the fuel truck, using parked vehicles and equipment to mask her movement toward the hangar. Her mechanic's knowledge of the base layout served her well. She knew every blind spot, every maintenance corridor. But Hayes knew the base too, and he had resources she lacked. Sir, one of his men called out, device on bird 2 has been compromised. Hayes's curse echoed across the flight line. Find Rodriguez, now. Emma broke into a run, abandoning stealth for speed. Behind her, she heard orders being shouted, vehicles starting, the machinery of pursuit grinding into motion. The hangar was 50 yards away, then 30. Then, there. A security guard rounded the corner ahead of her, weapon drawn. Stop right there. Emma skidded to a halt, trapped between the guard ahead and Hayes's team behind. Her mind flashed to her father, to the impossible choice he had faced in Afghanistan. Sometimes, Miguel had told her, you had to risk everything to do what was right. She fainted left, then dove right, rolling behind a maintenance cart as the guard shouted warnings. The hangar door was close enough to touch, but it might as well have been miles away. Then Stone appeared. He moved with the fluid precision of a trained operator, disarming the guard with efficient brutality. "This way," he called to Emma, gesturing toward a side entrance. They ran together, Stone's longer stride matching Emma's desperate pace. Behind them, Hayes's voice rose in fury as he coordinated the search. "The ceremony!" Emma gasped as they reached temporary safety in a storage building. "We have to stop it." "The devices are disabled," Stone reminded her. "The aircraft are safe. But Hayes won't give up. He'll find another way." Stone's expression darkened as he considered the possibilities. A man desperate enough to plan mass murder wouldn't be deterred by a single setback. Hayes had backup plans, alternative methods. What else could he use? Stone asked, his tactical mind working through scenarios. Emma's eyes widened as understanding struck her. The memorial itself. The dedication ceremony is at the monument site. If he can't use the aircraft... She paused, her mechanical mind visualizing possibilities. The sound system, the lighting rigs, even the monument's foundation, any of those could be rigged with explosives. Stone felt the pieces clicking into place. They had been thinking like pilots and mechanics, focused on aircraft sabotage. But Hayes was thinking like a soldier, adapting his tactics to changing circumstances. "We need to warn them," Emma said urgently. Stone pulled out his phone, calling Martinez. "James, we need immediate evacuation of the ceremony site. Hayes has backup plans." "Can't do it," Martinez's voice crackled through the speaker. "Hayes countermanded my authority. Claims there's a security threat from unknown hostiles. He's locked down the base." The trap was complete. Hayes had used their own actions against them, portraying their investigation as a terrorist threat. Now he controlled all security, all communications, all access to the ceremony. "How long until the dedication begins?" Emma asked. Stone checked his watch. 30 minutes. Emma stared at the concrete floor, her mind working through impossible mathematics. Hundreds of innocent people, including families who had already lost so much, were walking into a death trap. And the 3 people who knew the truth were branded as terrorists, cut off from help. "There has to be something," she said quietly. "Some way to warn them." Stone was silent for a long moment, his tactical mind exploring options. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a decision that would change everything. "There is, but it means exposing ourselves completely. No backup, no support against a man who controls the entire base." Emma thought of her father, flying into a kill zone to save strangers, because it was the right thing to do. Some choices transcended personal safety. "Then that's what we do," she said simply. Stone nodded, seeing Miguel Rodriguez's courage reflected in his daughter's eyes. "But we need more than just courage. We need proof of what Hayes is planning." Emma's mechanical mind began working through the problem. "The memorial site, I helped install the electrical systems last month. If Hayes planted explosives, he'd need to integrate them with existing infrastructure to avoid detection. You know the layout. Every wire, every connection." Emma's voice gained confidence. "If there are devices there, I can find them, and more importantly, I can document them." Stone considered the plan. It was dangerous, requiring them to infiltrate the ceremony site while Hayes's security teams hunted them, but it offered something their previous approach lacked, concrete evidence of Hayes's intentions. "All right," Stone decided, "but we do this smart. Hayes expects us to run or hide. He won't expect us to move toward the danger." They spent precious minutes planning their approach, using Emma's knowledge of the base infrastructure and Stone's tactical expertise. The memorial site was heavily guarded, but Emma knew maintenance tunnels that could get them close. As they prepared to leave their hiding place, Emma felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. In 20 minutes, she would either save hundreds of lives or die trying, just like her father had done in the mountains of Afghanistan. "Commander," she said quietly, "if something happens to me..." "Nothing's going to happen," Stone interrupted firmly. "We're going to stop Hayes, save those families, and make sure your father gets the recognition he deserves." Emma nodded, drawing strength from his confidence. But as they slipped into the maintenance tunnels beneath Coronado, both knew they were walking into the most dangerous 20 minutes of their lives. The circle was closing, and the sins of the past were demanding payment in the present. The maintenance tunnels beneath Naval Base Coronado were a labyrinth of concrete and steel that Emma knew by heart. She led Stone through the narrow passages, their footsteps echoing softly in the confined space. Above them, the ceremony preparations continued, unaware of the deadly trap being set. "The memorial site has 3 main electrical feeds," Emma whispered, as they navigated the underground maze. If Hayes planted explosives, he'd tie them into the power grid to avoid suspicion. Remote detonation through the lighting control system. Stone followed close behind, his injured shoulder throbbing but his mind focused on the mission. "How do we access the site without being seen?" "Service tunnel exits directly beneath the main stage. We'll have maybe 5 minutes before security patrols circle back." They reached the access point, a heavy steel grate that opened onto the memorial grounds. Emma carefully lifted it, peering through the gap to assess the situation above. The ceremony site was a sobering sight. Hundreds of folding chairs arranged in neat rows faced a new granite monument dedicated to fallen pilots. Families were already arriving, children in their best clothes, elderly parents clutching photographs of sons and daughters who would never come home. There, Emma pointed to the stage area where speakers and lighting equipment created a complex web of cables and connections. "If I were hiding explosives, that's where I'd put them." Stone studied the layout, noting security positions and patrol patterns. Hayes had positioned his men strategically, controlling all approaches while maintaining the appearance of routine ceremony protection. "Guards at 2 and 8 o'clock, Stone observed. "Patrol sweep every 4 minutes, that's our window." They waited for the next patrol to pass, then emerged from the tunnel with practiced stealth. Emma moved immediately to the electrical panel behind the stage, her trained eyes scanning for anomalies among the legitimate equipment. It didn't take long to find them. "Jesus," she breathed, photographing the devices with her phone. "These aren't just explosives, they're shaped charges, designed to direct the blast into the crowd." Stone felt cold fury building in his chest. Hayes wasn't just planning to kill people, he was planning to maximize casualties among grieving families. "How many?" he asked. 6 devices that I can see. Probably more in the monument's base structure." Emma's hands moved quickly, documenting everything. The detonation sequence would bring down the entire memorial, then channel the explosion outward. "Can you disable them?" Emma studied the sophisticated wiring, her mechanical expertise warring with the complexity of military demolitions. "Maybe, but if I make a mistake, then we all die anyway," Stone finished grimly. "Do it." Emma began working on the first device, her hands steady despite the circumstances. Years of delicate aircraft maintenance had prepared her for this moment. Precision work under impossible pressure. 2 minutes, Stone warned, watching for the returning patrol. Emma's fingers moved with surgical precision, identifying the trigger circuits and carefully disconnecting them. The first device went dark, its LED indicators fading to black. "One down," she whispered, moving to the second charge. But as she reached for the wiring, footsteps approached from an unexpected direction. Hayes himself was walking toward the stage, accompanied by a man Emma didn't recognize. Tall, well-dressed, with the bearing of someone accustomed to power. "Everything in position?" the stranger was asking. "Completely," Hayes replied. "The devices are undetectable, and the detonation will appear to be a terrorist attack. No one will question the official story." Emma and Stone froze, hidden behind the electrical panel but close enough to hear every word. "And the Rodriguez woman," the stranger continued, "being handled as we speak, along with Stone and anyone else who might complicate the narrative." Emma's blood ran cold. They weren't just planning mass murder, they were planning to frame her for it. "Excellent," the stranger said. "The senator will be pleased. This memorial dedication will serve our purposes perfectly." Stone's mind raced. A senator involved in the conspiracy? This went far beyond Hayes's personal vendetta. They were dealing with a network of corruption that reached into the highest levels of government. The families deserved to know the truth about their loved ones. Hayes continued with chilling cynicism. "And they will, the truth we give them. Foreign terrorists, domestic security failures, the need for stronger military funding. Politics through tragedy," the stranger agreed. "Most effective." Emma felt sick, understanding the full scope of their plan. The memorial ceremony wasn't just a target, it was a propaganda opportunity designed to advance political agendas built on the graves of innocent people. The men moved away, continuing their conversation in lower tones. Emma immediately returned to her work, fury driving her hands as she disabled the remaining devices she could reach. 4 down, she reported, but there are more in the monument itself. I need to get closer. Stone checked his watch. Ceremony starts in 10 minutes. We're running out of time. Emma looked at the granite memorial, knowing that explosives hidden in its foundation would be nearly impossible to reach without specialized equipment. But she also knew that leaving them in place meant certain death for everyone in attendance. There's another way, she said slowly. The main electrical feed to the monument runs through a junction box near the base. If I can cut power to that section, the devices won't detonate. Not remotely. Hayes would have to trigger them manually, which means exposing himself. It was a desperate gamble, but their options were limited. Emma gathered her tools and prepared to make the dangerous crossing to the monument, knowing that discovery would mean immediate death. But as she prepared to move, her phone buzzed with an incoming message. The text was from an unknown number, but the words made her blood freeze. We have Martinez. Surrender now or he dies. You have 5 minutes. Stone read the message over her shoulder, his face darkening with rage and desperation. Hayes had anticipated their moves, prepared for their resistance. Now he held their friend's life as leverage. Emma stared at the memorial, at the families gathering to honor their dead, at the explosive devices that would turn remembrance into massacre. In 5 minutes, she would have to choose between saving Martinez and saving hundreds of innocent people. Just like her father had faced an impossible choice in Afghanistan, Emma Rodriguez was about to discover what she was truly made of. Emma stared at the phone message, her hands trembling with rage and desperation. The ceremony was beginning, families taking their seats, children fidgeting in formal clothes, elderly parents clutching memorial programs. In minutes, Hayes would detonate the charges, unless she surrendered. We can't abandon Martinez, she said quietly. And we can't let those families die, Stone replied, his voice heavy with the weight of command decisions. Your father faced this same choice in Afghanistan. Emma closed her eyes, feeling the ghost of Miguel Rodriguez's presence. He had chosen to save strangers over his own safety, flying into certain death because it was the right thing to do. Now his daughter faced the same impossible mathematics of sacrifice. There's a third option, she said suddenly, her mechanical mind finding a solution that others had missed. What if we don't have to choose? Stone looked at her questioningly as Emma pulled out her phone and began typing rapidly. I'm sending the photos of the explosive devices to Agent Chen, along with our location and Hayes's confession recording from earlier, she explained. If something happens to us, at least the truth will survive. That doesn't save Martinez. No, but it might save everyone else. Emma's fingers moved across the phone's keyboard with desperate efficiency. I'm also sending the technical specifications to the base's bomb disposal unit. Even if Hayes kills us, they'll know exactly what they're looking for. Stone watched her work, recognizing the same tactical thinking that had made her father an exceptional pilot. Emma Rodriguez wasn't just brave, she was smart, finding ways to turn desperate situations to her advantage. Done, Emma announced, pocketing the phone. Now we go get Martinez. They moved through the maintenance tunnels toward the coordinates Hayes had provided, a storage facility on the far side of the base. The ceremony's opening remarks echoed through the air vents above them, a stark reminder of how little time remained. The storage building was isolated, perfect for Hayes's purposes. Stone and Emma approached carefully, using their knowledge of the base layout to avoid detection. Through a grimy window, they could see Martinez bound to a chair, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Hayes stood beside him, checking his watch with the casual air of a man confident in his control. 2 armed guards flanked the exits, their weapons ready. Straight assault won't work, Stone whispered. Too many variables, too much risk to Martinez. Emma studied the building's structure, her engineer's eye noting details that others might miss. The electrical system, she said quietly. This building is on the same grid as the memorial site. If I can create a power surge, the lights go out, we move in the dark? Better than that. A controlled surge will trip the emergency lighting system, but on a 30-second delay. We'll have half a minute of complete darkness. Stone smiled grimly. Your father would be proud. Emma used her tools to access the building's electrical panel, her hands moving with practiced precision, despite the circumstances. Years of aircraft maintenance had taught her to work quickly under pressure, to find solutions when lives hung in the balance. Ready? She asked. Stone positioned himself near the entrance, his combat training taking over. "Do it." Emma triggered the surge, and the building plunged into darkness. Stone moved immediately, his night vision and tactical experience giving him the advantage. The guards, disoriented and confused, never had a chance. Hayes tried to reach for his weapon, but Emma was already there, her wrench connecting solidly with his wrist. The gun clattered across the floor as Hayes cursed in pain and surprise. "It's over," Stone announced, as the emergency lights flickered on, revealing Hayes on the ground and his guards unconscious. But Hayes laughed, even as Martinez worked to free himself from his bonds. "You think this ends with me? The ceremony is still happening. The devices are still armed." Emma checked her phone, seeing missed calls from Agent Chen. "The bomb squad found your explosives. They're being disarmed as we speak." Hayes's confident expression cracked. "Impossible. Those devices are undetectable." "Not to someone who knows what to look for," Emma replied. "I documented everything, sent the specifications to people who actually care about saving lives." The sound of approaching vehicles filled the air. NCIS agents, bomb disposal experts, base security responding to the crisis. Hayes's network of corruption was finally being exposed to the light. Agent Chen burst through the door with her team, weapons drawn and voices shouting orders. Her sharp eyes quickly assessed the situation. Hayes defeated, Martinez injured but alive, Stone and Emma standing victorious. "Status report," Chen demanded. "Hayes is neutralized," Stone replied. "The explosive devices at the ceremony have been documented and reported to bomb disposal." "Already handled," Chen confirmed. 6 devices disarmed, memorial site secured. The ceremony is proceeding safely. Emma felt her knees weaken with relief. The families gathering to honor their loved ones would go home safely tonight. Children would grow up with both parents. Elderly couples wouldn't lose their remaining sons and daughters to Hayes's twisted ambitions. "There's more," Hayes said desperately, realizing his situation was hopeless. "This goes beyond me. Senator Morrison, defense contractors, arms deals in Afghanistan. I have documentation, proof of everything." Chen's expression hardened. "Then you'd better start talking. Full cooperation is the only thing standing between you and a death sentence." As Hayes was handcuffed and read his rights, Emma felt a strange mixture of triumph and exhaustion. The truth about her father's death was finally revealed, the conspiracy exposed, justice served after 12 years of lies. But the victory felt incomplete. Miguel Rodriguez was still gone, and no amount of justice could bring him back. "Ms. Rodriguez," Chen approached her gently, "what you did today, documenting those devices, risking everything to save innocent lives, that's exactly what your father would have done." Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in 12 years, she understood that her father's death had meaning, that his sacrifice had saved lives and inspired others to stand for justice. Stone, his shoulder properly bandaged by medics, joined their conversation. "Emma, there's something you should know. The military is reviewing your father's case for the Medal of Honor. His actions in Afghanistan, the lives he saved, he's going to receive the recognition he deserved." Emma's knees nearly buckled with emotion. The Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration, reserved for the most extraordinary acts of valor. Her father would finally be remembered not as a victim of circumstance, but as a hero who chose courage over safety. As the immediate crisis passed and investigators began their work, Emma found herself standing outside the storage building, looking toward the memorial site where families were safely honoring their loved ones. The helicopters her father had flown, the aircraft she now maintained, represented a legacy of service that transcended individual lives. The sun was setting over Coronado, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. It was the end of one chapter, but Emma Rodriguez understood that her story was just beginning. Her father's work, protecting the innocent, standing for truth, refusing to compromise with corruption, would continue through her. 3 weeks after Hayes's arrest, Emma stood in the Pentagon's Hall of Heroes, surrounded by portraits of Medal of Honor recipients spanning generations of American military service. Soon her father's photograph would join these walls, but today she was here for a different reason. Agent Chen had requested her presence for a classified briefing about the conspiracy Hayes had revealed. The investigation had uncovered a network of corruption reaching far beyond one bitter colonel's vendetta. "The evidence Hayes provided has been substantial," Chen explained as they walked through secure corridors. "Senator Morrison was indeed involved. along with several defense contractors and military officials. Your father wasn't the only one who died to protect their secrets. Emma felt a chill of understanding. How many others? We've identified at least 6 suspicious deaths over the past 12 years. Pilots, intelligence officers, civilian contractors, all people who had access to information about illegal arms deals and money laundering operations in Afghanistan. They entered a secure briefing room where Stone waited, his arm still in a sling, but his expression alert and determined. Spread across the table were photographs, documents, and financial records that painted a picture of systematic corruption. The operation was sophisticated, Stone explained as Emma took a seat, using legitimate military contracts to cover illegal weapons sales to various factions. Your father discovered evidence of these transactions during his final mission. Emma studied a photograph of her father's aircraft, taken just hours before his death. What exactly did he see? Chen activated a wall display showing satellite imagery of the Afghan mountains. Your father was providing air support for Stone's team when he observed an unauthorized weapons transfer. Instead of Taliban insurgents, he saw American contractors delivering advanced weaponry to unknown parties. He recorded everything, Stone added quietly. Flight recorder data, photographs, radio communications, evidence that would have exposed the entire network. Emma's hands clenched into fists. So they killed him for doing his job. They killed him for being honest, Chen corrected. In their world, loyalty to the operation mattered more than loyalty to country. The briefing continued for 2 hours, revealing the scope of a conspiracy that had generated millions in illegal profits while undermining American military operations. Emma learned that her father's death had been carefully orchestrated to look like equipment failure, with Hayes personally overseeing the cover-up. What happens now? Emma asked as the session concluded. Trials, convictions, justice, Chen replied. But it will take time. These people have powerful connections, expensive lawyers, political influence. Stone leaned forward, his expression serious. There's something else, Emma. The investigation has revealed that you're still in danger. Emma's blood chilled. What do you mean? Several conspirators remain unidentified, Chen explained. They know you were instrumental in exposing Hayes, and they consider you a continuing threat. We're recommending protective custody until all arrests are made. Emma shook her head firmly. I won't hide. My father didn't hide from danger, and neither will I. This isn't about courage, Stone said gently. It's about staying alive long enough to see justice done. But Emma had already made her decision. I'm going back to work, back to Coronado. If they want to come after me, they'll have to do it in the open. Chen and Stone exchanged concerned looks, recognizing the same stubborn integrity that had gotten Miguel Rodriguez killed. Emma Rodriguez was her father's daughter in every way that mattered. At least accept security protection, Chen urged. Discreet surveillance, backup communications, emergency protocols. Emma considered this compromise. As long as it doesn't interfere with my work. Those aircraft still need maintenance, and the pilots still need someone they can trust. 2 days later, Emma returned to Naval Base Coronado to find a changed atmosphere. Word of the conspiracy had spread through the military community, creating a mixture of outrage and renewed determination to honor fallen heroes properly. Her fellow mechanics greeted her with respect and admiration, understanding that she had risked everything to expose the truth. But Emma noticed the subtle security presence. Agents posing as maintenance personnel, additional patrols, enhanced communication monitoring. She was working on a helicopter engine when Martinez approached, his head bandage a reminder of their recent ordeal. How are you holding up? He asked, settling onto a nearby tool cart. Better than I expected, Emma replied honestly. Knowing the truth about my father's death, it's painful, but it's also liberating. And the ongoing investigation? Emma's expression hardened. Chen says there are still people out there who want me dead. People who think my father's sacrifice was acceptable collateral damage. Martinez was quiet for a moment, studying her face. You know, your father and I talked the night before his final mission. He was worried about something he'd seen, something that didn't feel right. Emma stopped working, giving Martinez her full attention. He said if anything happened to him, I should make sure you knew he was proud of you, that you had the strength to carry on his legacy. Tears blurred Emma's vision, but her voice remained steady. He was right about that. That evening, Emma stood on the flight line where her father had once prepared for his final mission. The Pacific sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, and the sound of helicopters returning from training exercises filled the air. Stone approached from behind, his footsteps quiet on the tarmac. "Thinking about him?" he asked. "Thinking about the future," Emma replied. "About what comes next." Stone nodded, understanding her meaning. The conspiracy that had killed Miguel Rodriguez was wounded, but not dead. Other families might face the same grief Emma had carried for 12 years, unless someone continued the fight for truth. "Agent Chen offered me a position," Emma said quietly. "Consulting work, helping investigate military corruption cases, using my technical knowledge to uncover evidence that others might miss. Are you considering it?" Emma turned to face him, her expression resolute. "My father died protecting the truth. I think it's time I started living for the same cause." Stone smiled, seeing Miguel Rodriguez's courage and determination reflected in his daughter's eyes. He would be proud. As night fell over Coronado, Emma Rodriguez stood at the crossroads between her past and future, between grief and purpose, between the daughter of a hero and a hero in her own right. The shadows were long, but the light of truth was growing stronger. 6 months later, Emma Rodriguez stood before the United States Congress, her voice steady as she delivered testimony that would reshape military oversight and accountability. The hearing room was packed with families of fallen service members, journalists, and officials whose careers hung in the balance. "My father, Captain Miguel Rodriguez, died because he refused to look the other way when he witnessed corruption," Emma stated, her words carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "Today I ask you to ensure that his sacrifice, and the sacrifices of others like him, finally means something." Senator Morrison sat at the committee table, his political career in ruins, but his defiance intact. He had been arrested 3 weeks earlier, his involvement in the Afghan arms-dealing conspiracy, finally exposed through Hayes's testimony and Emma's evidence. Agent Chen watched from the gallery, satisfied to see justice taking its course. The investigation had uncovered a network of corruption spanning multiple military branches and defense contractors. 17 people had been arrested, with more indictments expected. Emma's testimony concluded. She took her seat next to Stone, who had become both mentor and close friend during the months of investigation and legal proceedings. His shoulder had healed completely, but the bond forged in those desperate hours at Coronado remained strong. "How do you feel?" Stone asked quietly. "Like my father can finally rest in peace," Emma replied, watching as Senator Morrison was led away in handcuffs. The committee chairman called for a recess, and Emma stepped outside to find Martinez waiting with news that made her heart soar. "It's official," he announced, holding up a formal document. "Captain Miguel Rodriguez will receive the Medal of Honor posthumously. The ceremony is scheduled for next month at the White House." Emma felt tears of joy and pride streaming down her face. After 13 years, her father would receive the recognition he had earned through his courage and sacrifice. More importantly, his story would inspire future generations of service members to choose honor over convenience. "There's more," Martinez continued. "The Navy is naming the new pilot training facility at Coronado after your father, the Miguel Rodriguez Center for Aviation Excellence." Emma could barely speak through her emotions. Her father's name would live on, associated not with tragedy, but with the highest ideals of military service. Stone placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. "He would be proud of what you've accomplished, Emma, not just exposing the conspiracy, but ensuring it can never happen again." Emma had indeed accomplished more than anyone could have imagined. Her technical expertise and unwavering determination had helped investigators uncover evidence that traditional methods had missed. The new oversight protocols she had helped design would prevent future corruption and protect whistleblowers who chose conscience over career. "Agent Chen has a proposition for you," Stone mentioned as they walked toward the Capitol steps. Emma raised an eyebrow questioningly. "She wants you to head a new joint task force, military and civilian investigators working together to root out corruption in defense contracts. You'd have the resources and authority to prevent what happened to your father from happening to others." Emma considered the offer carefully. It would mean leaving her beloved aircraft maintenance, but it would also mean carrying forward her father's legacy in the most meaningful way possible. "What do you think?" she asked Stone. "I think Miguel Rodriguez raised a daughter who knows the difference between right and wrong, and who has the courage to act on that knowledge. Whatever you decide, you'll make the right choice." That evening, Emma returned to Naval Base Coronado, for what might be her final shift as an aircraft mechanic. The hangar where she had discovered Hayes's sabotage devices had been renamed in honor of the fallen pilots whose memories had been dishonored by the conspiracy. She found herself working on the same helicopter where her journey had begun, the aircraft her father had once flown, now maintained by his daughter's skilled hands. As she performed the routine checks that ensured pilot safety, Emma felt the presence of everyone who had shaped her path: Miguel Rodriguez's courage, Stone's loyalty, Martinez's friendship, and even Hayes's corruption that had ultimately led to justice. Her phone buzzed with a message from Agent Chen. "Task force position is yours if you want it. No pressure, but the country needs people like you." Emma looked around the hangar one final time, at the aircraft that had been her life's work, at the tools that had been her father's legacy. Then she typed her response. "When do I start?" Some people were born to maintain machines. Others were born to maintain justice. Emma Rodriguez had discovered she was capable of both, but her country needed her to choose the path that would honor her father's sacrifice most completely. As she walked out of the hangar toward her new future, Emma carried with her the knowledge that Miguel Rodriguez's death had not been in vain. His courage had inspired his daughter to become the guardian of truth he had died trying to protect. The circle was complete, but the mission continued. In a world where corruption and compromise threatened the values that service members died to defend, Emma Rodriguez would stand as her father's living legacy, proof that honor, courage, and integrity could triumph over the darkest conspiracies. Behind her, the helicopters sat ready for their next mission, maintained to perfection by hands that understood the sacred trust between mechanic and pilot. Ahead of her lay a future dedicated to ensuring that trust would never again be betrayed by those sworn to protect it. Miguel Rodriguez's daughter was ready to serve her country in a new way, carrying forward the legacy of a hero who had chosen death over dishonor, and inspiring others to make the same choice when their moment of testing came. The autumn sun cast long shadows across Arlington National Cemetery as Emma Rodriguez Stone walked slowly between the white marble headstones, her 7-year-old daughter Sarah skipping beside her. The little girl's dark hair caught the golden light, and her curious eyes took in everything with the wonder of childhood. "Tell me again about Grandpa Miguel," Sarah asked, her small hand slipping into Emma's. Emma smiled, her heart still warming at the familiar request. "Your grandfather was the bravest man I ever knew. He flew helicopters to help people, and he always did what was right even when it was dangerous." They stopped before a pristine white headstone bearing Miguel Rodriguez's name, rank, and the distinctive star that marked him as a Medal of Honor recipient. Fresh flowers lay at its base, Emma's weekly tribute to the father whose courage had shaped her life's mission. "Is that why you catch bad guys now?" Sarah asked with the directness of a child. "That's right, sweetheart. I make sure that good people like Grandpa Miguel are protected from those who would hurt them." Emma's work with the Joint Military Integrity Task Force had exceeded everyone's expectations. In 7 years, her team had uncovered dozens of corruption cases, prevented countless fraudulent contracts, and established oversight protocols that had become the gold standard for military accountability. The Hayes conspiracy had been just the beginning. Emma's unique combination of technical expertise and investigative instincts had proven invaluable in exposing networks of corruption that traditional methods had missed. She had become the military's most trusted corruption hunter, feared by the dishonest and respected by the honorable. "Mummy, why are you crying?" Sarah asked, noticing the tears in Emma's eyes. "Happy tears, baby. I'm just thinking about how proud Grandpa Miguel would be of our family." Emma's marriage to Commander Stone 3 years earlier had surprised no one who knew them. Their partnership, forged in crisis and strengthened by shared values, had evolved naturally into love. Stone had retired from active duty to support Emma's career, becoming a respected consultant on military ethics while serving as the primary caregiver for Sarah. "Uncle James is here," Sarah announced, pointing toward the cemetery entrance, where Martinez approached with his characteristic measured stride. Martinez had paid a price for his role in exposing the conspiracy. Several attempts had been made on his life by remaining conspirators, leaving him with permanent injuries and a heightened awareness of how dangerous the truth could be. But he had never regretted his choice to stand with Emma and Stone. "How's our girl doing?" Martinez asked, ruffling Sarah's hair affectionately. "She wants to be a pilot when she grows up," Emma replied. "Says she wants to help people like her grandfather did." Martinez smiled. seeing Miguel Rodriguez's spirit living on in the next generation. The world could use more pilots like Miguel Rodriguez. They stood together in comfortable silence, three people whose lives had been forever changed by one man's refusal to compromise his principles. The conspiracy that had killed Miguel Rodriguez was finally dead. The last conspirator had been convicted just 6 months earlier, bringing closure to a case that had consumed 13 years of Emma's life. Agent Chen sends her regards, Martinez mentioned. She's retiring next month. Says the task force is in good hands with you leading it. Emma nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility that came with protecting others who chose courage over convenience. Her work was far from finished. Corruption was like a cancer that required constant vigilance to prevent its return. There's something else, Martinez continued, his tone becoming more serious. We've received intelligence about potential irregularities in the new Afghan withdrawal contracts. Looks like some people haven't learned from the Hayes case. Emma's expression hardened with familiar determination. Then we'll teach them. Again. Sarah looked up at her mother with admiration, sensing the strength and purpose that defined Emma's character. Will you catch the bad guys, Mommy? Yes, sweetheart. That's what we do. We catch the bad guys so that good people can sleep safely at night. As they prepared to leave the cemetery, Emma placed her hand on her father's headstone one final time. Thank you, Dad, for showing me what courage looks like, for teaching me that some things are worth dying for and worth living for. The Miguel Rodriguez Center for Aviation Excellence at Coronado had graduated over 300 pilots, each one trained not just in flying skills, but in the ethical principles that Miguel Rodriguez had embodied. His legacy lived on in every mission they flew, every life they saved, every moment they chose honor over expedience. Emma Rodriguez Stone had found her purpose in continuing her father's work, but she had also found something he had been denied, the chance to see that work completed, to know that his sacrifice had meaning, to watch his values passed on to the next generation. As they walked toward the cemetery exit, Sarah asked one more question. Mommy, will you tell me the story about how you and Daddy caught the bad colonel? Emma laughed, remembering the terrified young mechanic who had stumbled onto a conspiracy that seemed too big to fight. When you're older, baby. When you're old enough to understand that sometimes ordinary people have to do extraordinary things. But looking at her daughter's bright, curious eyes, Emma suspected that understanding would come sooner than expected. Miguel Rodriguez's granddaughter was already showing signs of the same moral clarity and stubborn courage that had defined her family's legacy. The sun was setting over Arlington, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson that reminded Emma of that final evening at Coronado when her real life had begun. 7 years later, she was no longer running from her father's shadow. She was walking proudly in his footsteps, carrying his torch into a future where truth and justice would always find champions willing to fight for them. Miguel Rodriguez's mission was complete, but his legacy would continue forever. As we reach the end of Emma Rodriguez's extraordinary journey, we're reminded that true heroism isn't found in the absence of fear, but in the courage to act despite it. Miguel Rodriguez flew into certain danger because innocent lives hung in the balance. His daughter faced down a conspiracy that threatened hundreds of families because she understood that some battles must be fought, regardless of the personal cost. This story illuminates a profound truth about the nature of integrity. It cannot be compromised without losing its essence entirely. When Miguel Rodriguez witnessed corruption in Afghanistan, he could have looked the other way, filed a routine report, and returned home safely to his daughter. Instead, he chose to document the truth, knowing it would make him a target. That choice cost him his life, but saved countless others and ultimately exposed a network of corruption that had operated in darkness for over a decade. Emma's journey from grieving daughter to corruption fighter shows us that legacy isn't just about what we inherit, it's about what we choose to do with that inheritance. She could have accepted the official story about her father's death, continued her quiet life as an aircraft mechanic, and avoided the danger that came with seeking truth. Instead, she chose to honor her father's memory by continuing his fight for justice. The story also reveals how ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things when they refuse to accept injustice. Emma wasn't a trained investigator or a combat veteran. She was a mechanic who knew aircraft systems and had an unshakable moral compass. But those qualities, combined with courage and determination, proved sufficient to bring down a conspiracy that had defeated professional investigators for years. Commander Stone's transformation from guilt-ridden survivor to dedicated ally demonstrates the power of redemption. For 12 years, he carried the burden of believing he had failed Miguel Rodriguez. But when given the chance to honor his fallen comrade's memory, Stone found purpose and peace. His partnership with Emma proved that healing often comes through service to others. Perhaps most importantly, this story reminds us that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. The Hayes conspiracy succeeded for over a decade because good people assumed that others were watching, that systems were working, that justice would naturally prevail. But justice requires champions, individuals willing to risk everything to protect the innocent and expose the corrupt. The families at that memorial ceremony went home safely because 3 people refused to accept that mass murder was inevitable. The pilots who fly from the Miguel Rodriguez Center for Aviation Excellence do so knowing that their aircraft have been maintained by people who understand the sacred trust between those who serve and those who support them. Emma's new role, leading the Joint Military Integrity Task Force, ensures that her father's sacrifice will continue protecting others. Every corruption case she solves, every conspiracy she exposes, every whistleblower she protects carries forward Miguel Rodriguez's legacy of choosing honor over safety. As you reflect on this story, consider the moments in your own life when you faced the choice between convenience and conscience, between personal safety and moral courage. We may not all face conspiracies or life or death decisions, but we all encounter situations where our integrity is tested. What would you have done in Emma's position? Would you have pursued the truth about your father's death, knowing it might cost you everything? Would you have risked your life to save strangers at a memorial ceremony? Would you have chosen justice over safety? These questions matter because the Miguel Rodriguezes and Emma Rodriguezes of the world depend on the rest of us to support them, to believe them, to stand with them when they choose the difficult path of truth over the easy path of silence. The next time you encounter injustice, whether in your workplace, your community, or your country, remember that ordinary people with extraordinary courage can change the world. Remember that every act of moral courage, no matter how small, contributes to a legacy of honor that protects us all. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of courage and redemption moved you, write honor in the comments to show you made it to the end and help us spread this message of integrity and justice. Don't miss our other powerful military stories available in the cards below, tales of heroism, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds forged in service to others. Remember, the price of honor is high, but the cost of dishonor is far higher. Choose courage. Choose truth. Choose to be the person that heroes like Miguel Rodriguez died protecting.